Yo, what's up guys, Boss here, and I'm back on the YouTube video, and this time we're going to be doing something a little different. I've done a couple of these before. You guys can see on the top right, no deck there. Because we're not doing a video like in Clash Royale today, we're actually doing a tier maker list on Clash Royale of the cards. So I did one of these, I think about 4 or 5 months ago, and you guys enjoyed it. And because we're in a new meta now, as you guys know, there was a ton of balance changes since the last one I did, and also I think a couple new cards were added since then. So I decided I'm gonna do another one of these. I think I've only done in total like 3 of them, 4 of them or so, and you guys are always interested when I do them. I think it's just, you know, cool for you guys to see like how I personally would like rank cards. If you guys didn't know, I've been playing this game about 5 years now, which is an insanely long time. So I would say consider myself to have a lot of knowledge on this game. And the way that this works is S tier is the best, meaning like it's broken, could use a nerf. A tier essentially means it's very, very strong, but maybe not quite in that range of needing a nerf. B is average, C is a little bit below average, and then D basically means the card could use a buff. D means that it's just not very good. So quite an interesting way to start off. We have the E-Barbs, which, as you guys know, and this is, by the way, of May 2021. That's the time I'm recording this. I just want to make sure to clarify that. E-Barbs are going right into the S tier. They, of all cards in the game right now, definitely need a nerf. They were overbuffed, in my opinion, and they are just broken right now. So, Archers, not too much to say about them. I consider them like average. They're good in Hog EQ. They're good in Expo. I don't think they're like too strong though. Baby Dragon. I'm actually gonna go ahead and throw that. I just want to put an A. I feel like it's a strong card. It used to be an S in my opinion, and then the hit points got nerfed. I think it's A though. It's above average. It's a good card. Bandit is gonna go ahead and go into B. I think it's an average card. Doesn't need, definitely not a buff, not a nerf either. It's solid in P.E.K.K.A. bridge spam decks in general, but it's not too strong. I don't even think it's really above average. I wouldn't put it in A. Now the bar putt, I'm gonna go ahead and put this in C. It's below average. I mean, ever since it got that nerf, we're not seeing it as much, which I'm fine with personally. I don't think it's healthy for a bar putt to be meta. I like it in graveyard decks occasionally, and elixir golem you see it sometimes, but I think where it's at right now, it's in a good spot. So barbarians are going to go ahead and go into B tier. I would say they were in A tier, but now with E-Barbs being so strong, there's no really point in using the barbarians currently. It's just much better to use the E-Barbs. So the bar barrel is going to go ahead and go into A tier. I feel like most spells, especially small spells, a lot of them you guys are going to see on this list are going to end up being in A tier. Some might even be in S tier, just because small spells are just very, very good. And the bats are going to go ahead and go into, I don't know if I want to put them in S. I think for now, we're going to put them in A, just because of how good the Mother Witch is, and we'll get to the Mother Witch later on whenever we see it. The healer, I'm going to go with C. I don't think it's I would consider it below average in my opinion. I don't see it very often anymore, to tell you guys the truth. Elixir Golem isn't really meta anymore, and that was the primary deck we saw it in anyway. Definitely it's C. I think that's where it belongs. Same with the Battle Ram. In fact, Battle Ram is kind of towards, in a way, almost not really D, because we do see it in P.E.K.K.A. and some bridge spam decks, but Battle Ram definitely kind of C2. I don't really think it's too strong at the moment. Dark Goblin, I actually, again, am putting this in C, but don't worry, we're going to stop the streak of C's now. Bomber was, I would say, probably in C tier, but because of the rework it got in the last bounces, we're actually going to go ahead and put this in, believe it or not, call me crazy, we're putting it in A tier. Because Bomber right now in Golem and Lava Hound decks, very, very good. I see it also in some other decks besides Golem and Lava Hound. I think overall, very versatile for 2 Elixir. It's just overall made Beatdown stronger, because I just see Bomber quite a lot in this meta. And it's good and competitive, good in ladder. It's a solid card right now. The rework was definitely a success. It went probably from C/D tier all the way into A. So good rework there, in my opinion. Now, the bomb tower was broken. That actually, in I think the last tier video I did, I think I had that in S. But after the nerf, it's going to be in C. Kind of like the barbarian hut, still viable, but not very good. Bowler actually going to go ahead and go into, there we go, the card wasn't selecting for some reason. The bowler's going to go in B tier. I don't think it's good enough to go into A, where I feel like it's very, very good. But it's about average. It's not below average. You know, it's better than Executioner, which I feel like is a card it's compared to a lot. So I think it belongs in B. Elixir Collector is just going to go in D tier. It sucks. I mean, let's be honest. Now that we have Earthquake in the game, which has been in the game for a while, it's just been bad. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. I feel like it's just not that good. You know, anytime someone has an Earthquake, you're getting a negative trade, and if they have like a Rocket, Lightning, you don't get anything out of it. The opponent gets tower damage, so it's a risky card, only good in 3M right now. Inferno going in C tier. I feel like over the course of the years, as Clash has gone, you know, on and evolved, it's gotten like a little worse. I feel like every year, you know, when Clash, you know, first came out, it used to be broken, and now it's below average. I mean, there's just buildings that are much better than it. Speaking of buildings that are better than it, Mortar is going to go ahead and go into A tier. Mortar, very, very good right now. We see lots of Mortar E-Barbs decks, and even Mortar without the E-Barbs, we see a decent amount. Very, very good defensive card. Also serves as a win condition too, and it's a good card. Now, the Tesla, some of you guys might not believe me when I say this. I actually am going to go ahead and put, hold on one second, something got, there we go, moved around a ton. Anyway, Tesla is actually going to go in S tier. I think it's the best building in the game right now. We're seeing Hog EQ Tesla. We're seeing just like a lot of decks that had Bomb Tower Tesla. So honestly, Tesla's kind of the new Bomb Tower. It's so strong. You guys might call me crazy for putting it in S tier, but in my opinion, if you master it, like learn the interactions, you guys will realize too how strong it is. The fact that you can like cycle to Teslas, you can defend kind of just about anything if you play the Tesla well enough. As I said, just like Hog and other cycle decks like Miner decks and just stuff like that are very, very good with Tesla. It's not an easy card to play though, like I will say that. It is one you need to master the interactions with, but Tesla is very, very strong. Now, something that the Tesla does pair with though is the Expo. Now, the Expo is going to go in B tier. Expo is not a, you know, Expo's not a strong card. It's about average. But with the Tesla, that is why when people complain about Expo, they often are hating on the Tesla too, because the Tesla is what makes it so strong, and even that's what makes Expo be kind of like one of the meta decks. Without the Tesla, Expo wouldn't be the way it is. Now, the Cannon card is going to be in C tier. I forgot where I put it in the last tier ranking video I did, but I think I either had it in B or A. After that rework it got, honestly, it was kind of a nerf. It's below average now. It's a lot worse. Now, the Cannon, I'm actually going to go ahead and put in D tier. Even though it's better than the Elixir Collector, really the Cannon's only viable in 2.6, and even then, 2.6, we don't even see that often anymore. It's just kind of falling out of the meta more and more, I feel like. Now, the Balloon, Balloon is going to go ahead and go into A tier. I actually, hold on, let me, it's hard to select these. There we go. So the Balloon's actually going to go in A tier, because I think that nerf it got, the death damage was a success. I think it's a little worse. I don't think it's broken anymore. I remember, I think I had it in S tier, but it's A now after the nerf it got. Nerf was good. It's not completely broken anymore, I feel like. Golem, I don't know if this is going to start a lot of controversy, but Golem, believe it or not, is going to go in B tier. It's not the Golem that's strong. You guys will see the Night Witch coming up. You'll see why. Which, by the way, is going in C tier. It's just, I mean, it wasn't D, but because of the buff it got, recently, I do put it in C. It's a little better, and like it's way better than the Elixir Collector and Cannon, in my opinion. The Clone is actually going to go in A tier, and you might be wondering, do I want to put it in A or do I want to put it in B? Actually, it's not as bad as you think. You probably were thinking I'm going to put it in Elixir or something. Well, here's the thing. Clone, the decks it's used in, like Lava Clone and Golem Clone, are very annoying, and for that reason, I'm going to put it in B. I think it's, when used, it's alright. Dark Prince, I'm actually going to put Dark Prince, I'm going to put Dark Prince in B. Because it's really good in Electro Giant right now. It's good in Golem and probably a couple other decks I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's not an above average card. It's good where it's at, you know, it's for what it is, it's good, but now here we go. This thing right here, the Night Witch, this is what makes Golem strong. This 100% belongs in A tier. Some people even think the Night Witch needs a nerf. I don't know about that, but I think A tier is perfectly okay. Now, the Earthquake, that is going to go in B tier. It was, in my opinion, an S tier, and then they nerfed it so it doesn't do as much damage to Crown Towers, which was a deserved nerf. Before, it did almost 300 damage, which was absolutely insane. Now at max level, it does like 255, which is still more than a Fireball, but at least it's a little bit more reasonable. So the Electro Drag, I'm probably a little biased because you guys might know one of my favorite decks to use was Giant E-Drag, but I truly believe the E-Drag is not very good right now. I think it's a below average card. I don't know if it necessarily needs a buff. I think there's cards that need it more than the E-Drag, but the E-Drag is a pretty weak card in my opinion. Now, this Electro Giant, you could even argue it belongs in S tier, but for the reason that I feel like it's the type of card where some matchups are absolutely horrible, and then some you just have a straight up, like, free win. I can't put it in an S tier because there certainly are some hard counters for Electro Giant. Essentially, any deck that has a building is going to be pretty hard. Like, if they have a Goblin Cage or a Tesla, you're going to have a pretty hard time. So, for that reason, I don't think it's an S tier because in some matchups, yeah, it might be S tier, but then other matchups, it can be like C or D tier. It essentially just depends on the matchup, but it's overall an above average card. There's no doubt about that. So, the Electro Spirit, so we're going to kind of stick in the A tier here. It is going to go in A tier. It's better than the Ice Spirit right now. Really, there's no reason to use the Ice Spirit, like when there's the Electro Spirit in the game. You could even argue it belongs in S tier, but I think there is a Spirit that's a little better than the Electro Spirit, so I'm not going to put it in S, but it's very strong. So the E-Wiz is actually going to go in B tier. It was an A. Some people even said it was S, but after the damage nerf it actually got 2 damage nerfs, I'm pretty sure. It is certainly fallen a little bit in the rankings, but it's an average card. You know, it's very good in P.E.K.K.A. Some people use it in like RG, Giant. You know, it's good in those kind of like medium cost decks, and it's a really good reset. So I think it's solid. Now, Elixir Golem, you guys might be wondering, like, what the heck, why am I about to do this? But I'm putting it in D tier. There's only one reason why I'm doing that. The Elixir Golem without the healer is just complete garbage. And even with the healer, Elixir Golem is not great in this current meta. Now, I'm not saying I want it to be great, but all I'm saying is Elixir Golem is not very good. I do think it's pretty weak when they gave it that nerf, and again, I don't want it to be meta. I think it's a pretty toxic card, but like what I'm saying is if you just like look at like, you know, the competitive, like top of the leaderboards, like that type of thing, you don't see anyone using Elixir Golem. It's not really a good, when E-Barbs first got buffed, people were using like Elixir Golem E-Barbs, but now people realize like everyone knows how to counter that, so it's not really, you know, and the E-Barbs kind of carry it if people are using that deck. It's not the Elixir Golem itself. I think the Elixir Golem itself is not very good. Now, the Executioner, actually, kind of like the Elixir Golem, I'm going to throw the Executioner in here. Why? Well, there's literally no one who uses it, you know, in the top of ladder or in competitive. You see Viper, you guys shout out to him, the Hog Executioner player. He's the only one who has success with it, who actually does well, but that's like one exception, very rare. When you have the Bowler in the game, why would you use the Executioner? Essentially the same thing, except it doesn't hit air, but it does way better on defense, I can tell you that. So the Firecracker, this is going to go into, this is going to go into A tier. Above average, it was an S and then it got nerfed, if you guys remember. The reason why I think it's above average is in so many matchups it gets so much value. You see it in Royal Hog's recruits right now. You see it in like Hog EQ. It gets so much value for 3 elixir, and even if your opponent has arrows, you can outcycle them, and it's pretty good. So Fireball, we're actually gonna work our way. 1 second, it's just hard to select it sometimes. Here we go. So Fireball, actually, we're gonna take this, believe it or not. Let's first put it in A so we can scroll up. And this is actually going to go ahead and go into S tier. Why? Well, if you guys look at the current meta, there's tons of Fireball bait right now. You're seeing lots of Royal Hogs. You're seeing lots of like Mother Witches. Fireball is also decent against the E-Barbs. It synergizes well in like E-Barb decks. Like you see RG E-Barbs right now. And it's good against like pushing back like the Balloon. Like good if you're versus Golem. So you can go like Fireball and then Log to kill the Night Witch. And I just feel like Fireball is by far the best spell in the game right now. And for that reason, it is going in S tier. Because I truly think if Fireball got a nerf, it would still be a pretty good card. So for that reason, I think it belongs in S. It's so good in this meta. It makes spells like Poison seem like, why the heck would you even use them? You're seeing some people in graveyard decks now even use it with Fireball. You might see it in like P.E.K.K.A. Bridge Spam. You see Fireball instead of Poison. So the Goblin Hut is going in C tier. I think it's below average. It's kind of is it niche? Is that how you pronounce that? Which essentially means it's kind of like a card that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Really depends on the matchup, but like overall, you don't see it a lot. You might see it in competitive, in the CRL duels mode. You know, if someone wants to make kind of like a creative deck, catch the opponent off guard, can work for sure. Maybe if they don't have like a Poison or EQ available, good option. But like overall, way better buildings. Furnace is going to go in D tier, worse than the Goblin Hut. I can't think of any reason why you'd want to use a Furnace. Pretty much every building's better. It's the worst building in the game, well, including the Elixir Collector. Just not good. Fire Spirits are going to go in C. I feel like for how cheap they are, I can't put them in D tier. I feel like you can get some value out of them in lots of situations. And, you know, hey, in like Hog decks, Expo decks, even though no one's high up with them, they're viable. And I'm sure like when you're low on ladder, Fire Spirits can, you know, get you a lot of value. I think, you know, it's, even though they're not good, and I think if they got a buff, it wouldn't be OP if it was strong. I just think because they're so cheap, it allows them to be a little bit more like versatile, and you can get a little more value out of them. So the Fisherman is going to go in A tier. I think the nerf it got was definitely appropriate. It got a 10% hit points nerf. It's no longer an S tier in my opinion. You typically only see it in RG decks anyway, but because RG is so strong, for sure belongs in A tier. The Flying Machine, actually right now I'm thinking, do I want to put it in A? Or I remember at one point it was like in C tier, but honestly I think the Flying Machine right now is either in B or A because of the Royal Hog recruits decks, and maybe even like if someone's using in Lava Golem Clone. I'm putting it in B tier. I think for where it's at, it's solid. The Freeze is going to go ahead and go into C tier. It's below average. I don't want to put it in D though, because it does not need a buff in my opinion. I think a buff would make it too strong. In fact, we've seen Freeze before when it got buffed and it was insanely OP, and it's not a card we want to see extremely strong because we had a couple metas of that, I remember. Anyway, so the Ghost is going to go into B tier. I think it's an average card. You know, it's just... After now, it used to be C in my opinion, but now that it can go in the middle and there's some different interaction to it because it's able to like go through the bridge, as you know, the Healer and Ghost got that kind of like hover effect. I think B, you know, it's good in bridge spam, good in P.E.K.K.A. It's not that weak. I mean, if you really think about it, it really is a fast knight that has less hit points but does splash damage. So I mean, if you think about it like that, it's really not that bad of a card in my opinion. Giant Skeleton is going to go into D tier, because the nerf it got absolutely killed it in my opinion. You guys might have noticed that. No one's really using Giant Skeleton anymore. I think that was a horrible rework and ended up pretty much killing the card, and for that reason, it's just gonna go in D tier. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that. Maybe that's a little too harsh and it should be in C, but I think Giant Skeleton's quite horrible right now. It's not even that threatening if a Giant Skeleton gets to your tower anymore and drops that bomb, because it only does half the amount of damage that it used to. Anyway, the Spear Goblins we're going to go ahead and put into, to probably, believe it or not, we're going to put them all the way in A tier. The reason why I say that is because for 2 elixir, they get so much value. They're really, really good in cycle decks. Like any cycle deck you can think of, they usually fit in, like Mortar, Hog, Miner, you know, those types of decks, like Wall Breaker decks, etc. You know, like kind of the cycly type decks, usually fits pretty well in those. And you see it too in some baity decks, like maybe, you know, Log Bait. You might see Goblin Giant Double Prince. I don't know if you guys know that deck. That has them in well. They're a very good card. They get a lot of value for what they're worth. 2 elixir, definitely very solid card. Goblin Barrel is going to go in C tier. Like, you only see it in Log Bait, and I don't really... Is it below average, though? I don't... You know... Is it below average? That's the thing. I'm going to, for now, put it C. Might change my mind later. It doesn't need a buff, though, but... yeah, that's a tough one, actually. Might belong in B. Anyway, the Goblin Cage, we're going to put in... It's either going to be an A tier or S tier. I'm putting in an S with the Tesla. If I put the Tesla in S, I feel like I have to put the Goblin Cage, because right now, Goblin Cage and Tesla, 2 best buildings in the game right now, no doubt. Mortar followed closely behind. That's why I have Mortar in A tier. Goblin Cage, you got Royal Hogs Recruits. You got Electro Giant, you got, like, Balloon Cycle decks, you got, like, Golem decks, trying to think of some more things. I'm sure there are more, I just can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but pretty much, in a lot of the meta decks, you're seeing Goblin Cage, or the Tesla, and I just think they're for sure the strongest buildings right now in the game. And the Mortars follow closely behind. So yeah, the Goblin Gang is actually going to go in C tier. This is what's making me think the Barrel actually might belong in B, just because I think we see the Goblin Barrel used more than the Goblin Gang, because some people use Log Bait decks with Cannon Cart. The Barrel's going in B, actually. I changed my mind. Goblin Giant is actually going to go ahead and go into B too. After the buff it got, I think it's no longer in C. It's solid. Goblins are actually going to go into D. While I'm not saying they definitely need a buff, I mean, if you just guys think about it for a second, like this might not be something people think about a lot, because goblins aren't something people talk about very often. But if you just think about it for a second, when you have the skeletons in the game, why would you use the goblins? You know, sure, the goblins, they can't die to a zap, but they still die to a log, and log is what everyone's using anyway, and like bar barrel and stuff like that. So, like, why goblins? You know, that's the way I see it. Like, they're only better in a couple situations. It's just much better to have skeletons in pretty much every way, and for that reason, that's why they're in D, just because with all the other cards in the game, it's like goblins. I don't know why you'd use them. Fire Spirits, you could argue that same thing. Like, why do I put Fire Spirits in C and C instead of D? Well, because Fire Spirits at least do some splash, and they're only 2 elixir. They actually, I feel like they have a good use to them. But the goblins, I don't know, that to me doesn't really. Anyway, that's my opinion though. So the graveyard this is either gonna go in A. Oh, okay. The graveyard's actually going in B. This was in like A or S tier, but you know why it's not? Because of the Mother Witch, which we haven't even gotten to yet. Anyway, the Heal Spirit, let's go ahead and take this. This is gonna, I gotta think about this. Do I want to put the Heal Spirit in A tier with the Electro Spirit, or does one of the spirits belong in S? I don't know. I think I might just leave them both in A for now. I can't really think, like, which one's better, because in Electro Spirit, you see so many decks with Electro Spirit, but Heal Spirit 2, kind of, well, you see it with RG. They're above average, no doubt. I just don't know where they belong. Electro Spirit you see a lot in Expo now, even, too. The Hog, is... where do I want to put Hog? I feel like it's kind of average. You know, it's not one of the, like, if you're talking, like, ask someone, like, what one of the best win conditions is right now, you're not going to be like, oh, Hog, you know. You think, like, Electro Giant, you think, like, you know, Mortar, Balloon. So, I can't really put it above average. I think that would be not fair to say for the Hog. Hunter, my man Hunter going all the way down from S to probably C tier. Do I think it goes in D? I don't know. I think it's better than every single one of the cards I put in D. I don't know. Hunter, it's like, it's okay, you know, it's just a lot worse. So, I don't know. Ice Golem is, you know, it's gonna go in B. After the Night nerf, I think it's back in B. It's average. You know, you see it now a little bit in Expo again. You're also seeing it in, what do you call it? Oh, right, Mortar. Some people, the person who finished #1 last season, actually, Mugi, by the way, just to clarify, you know, you're watching this May 2021. So, last season, someone finished #1 with Mortar, and they had Ice Golem in that deck with E-Barb, so... Oh boy, here we go. So Ice Wizard, this is going in A. I think the Ice Wizard's really strong, especially with the Tornado combination. I don't think it belongs in S, but it definitely belongs in A. It's super strong. The Inferno Drag is going to go into... Do I want to put it in B tier, or do I want to put it in... With Electro Giant being so prevalent in the meta, I'm going to go ahead and put it in B, actually. If Electro Giant, say it wasn't in the game, I think Inferno Drag would for sure be in A. But for Electro Giant kind of keeping it in check, it's going to go in B. So Knight, even though it got nerfed, it's still an A tier. It was an S, but it's going to drop down to A. The reason why I still put it in A is because so many people are still using it. You know, you still see it in... Some people still prefer to use it in Expo. And you see it in, like, you know, Mortar decks, Graveyard decks... like Hog decks, you know, it's a very versatile card. I think it still belongs in A. Lava Hound, I'm going to go ahead and put in A too. I think that it's one of the better win conditions. You know, this is kind of a beatdowny type meta. You know, you're seeing a lot of Electro Giant Lava decks. It's A. I mean, with how strong Balloon is too, and they synergize well, it's above average right now as a win condition. The Lightning is going to go in B. I actually thought it was in C before, but now with Electro Giant and Golem being quite good in the meta, I think it's average right now. It's not a broken card, but it's kind of average. Or not about, I meant to say, of course it's not broken, but it's, anyway. Magic Arch, ooh. This is an interesting one. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put Magic Archer in C. I think with Mother Witch being in the game, there's not really a reason to use Magic Archer, even in, like, bridge spammy type decks, like you guys know, like, you know, Mega Knight Ram Rider, you used to see Magic Archer in it, but now I'm seeing like everyone use Mother Witch in it. I just think Mother Witch has kind of replaced it in a lot of decks, so I'm gonna have to put it in C. Mega Knight is gonna go in B. I feel like it's always kind of one of those average cards. Sometimes in some metas it's above or below, but at the moment it's B. You know, you see some E-Barb Mega Knight decks. You might also see Mega Knight Ram Rider. I think it's gonna be B. Mega Minion, I'm gonna have to think about for a second. I actually think I'm gonna put Mega Minion in B too. I think of it as an average card. It's not really above or below. It's just kind of average. Now the Miner. Oh boy. So yeah, some people might hate me for this or think I'm kind of crazy, but I think the Miner actually belongs in S tier. And I'm someone who uses the Miner a lot, so I don't think I'm like biased for like saying this, because, you know, I use it a lot too. I truly think it's really strong. Just think of how many decks it's used in. You can use it in cycle decks, like you can use it in like Mortar decks, you can use it in, you know, like Miner Wallbreaker decks, you can use it in, you know, just like Miner decks, even with like out the wall breakers. You can use it in Lava Hound, you can use it in Giant, like if Giant's ever meta. You can use it in like Loon Cycle, you can use it in, I'm trying to think if there's like anything I'm forgetting, but it's such a versatile card, and it's kind of like a win condition. It's cheap, it's so effective for just, yeah, I don't know. It's such a good card in my opinion. The Minion Horde is going to go into C tier. I think the Minions are going to go into B because they're a little better than the Minion Horde. But they're still, Minions are still not above average in my opinion. Mini P.E.K.K.A. Actually is going to, I think Mini P.E.K.K.A. is going to go in B too. We got a lot of B cards, but there's a lot of average cards in the game, so I guess it makes sense. Mirror's going to go in D tier. I think it could use a buff. It's not very good. I don't know if it should get a buff, but I think it could use one for sure. We're finally at the Mother Witch. So Mother Witch is going to go all the way up here into... give me a second. Into S tier. Why is Mother Witch in S tier? Well, because let me just explain a few reasons why. Do you guys know why Graveyard isn't great right now? It's because of the Mother Witch. Do you know why Bats, I didn't put them in S tier even though they're insanely strong? It's because of the Mother Witch keeping them in check. Pretty much, Mother Witch is just, in a way, it's kind of changed the meta a lot ever since it got that buff. Now, here's the thing. I don't think Mother Witch needs as big of a nerf as the E-Barbs do. I don't think, but I think it could use a very, very small nerf. It got like a 14% damage buff, maybe take away like 7%, something like that, or even 5%. But it is very, very strong, and it's also what's keeping cards, I think, like Musketeer and like Magic Archer from being as good. Also, Fireball, I didn't think I talked about that nerf, but I don't know if Fireball necessarily needs a nerf. I think what I'd like to see is a poison buff, and we're getting towards poison. Musketeer is going to go in C tier after the nerf. So you guys can kind of see the Mother Witch is kind of keeping some of the other cards like Hunter, Magic Archer, and Musk from being as good, but Ewiz is still in B. P.E.K.K.A. is going to go in C tier. Some people think it needs a buff, but I don't think it does. I just think it's a little weaker. So the poison's actually... so here's the thing. Poison, there's no way I can put it in D tier. It's not that bad, but I'm putting it in C tier. And here's what I'd like to see. Poison buff, maybe it has one more tick. Right now it has 8 ticks. Maybe it has 9. So this way we add a little more to the poison. Or maybe some kind of rework to it. Because right now, Fireball is by far the best spell in the game. Like, big spell. And I'd like to see that change. In my opinion. So, the Prince is going to go into B tier. I feel like Recruits definitely keep it in check. Princess is actually going to go ahead and go into... Yeah, you know, the Princess is actually... I don't even want to put it in C tier because of how annoying it is, and I feel like how much value it gets. Whenever I'm playing against Logbait and my opponent goes like Princess at the bridge or Princess in the back, and you constantly have to like Fireball it or just like worry about it, it's an annoying card for 3 elixir. I'm putting it in B. Lumberjack is going to go in B2. It was very good, like A or S it used to be, but now it's in the right spot. Rage, it's going in C. It's only good in Sparky and Elixir Golem. So the Ram Rider, I think is going to go in B. I think it's average. Electro Giant is kind of what's keeping it from being A, I feel like. Rascals are going to go into C. They're below average right now for sure. Rocket is actually going to go into C. I think it's worse than the Lightning at the moment because a lot of people are using Lightning and Electro Giant and Golem. Rocket we're not seeing as much. So Rocket's actually going to go ahead and go into C. RG. Do I think it needs a nerf? In my opinion, no. I could be biased, but I do not think the RG needs a nerf. But I am going to put it in A tier because I think it's one of the best Wink editions in the game right now. I think that the Royal Hogs, and if it were to get a nerf, maybe like a 2% damage nerf, something very, very small. But what makes the RG strong right now, I feel like, is the E-Barbs. I think the E-Barbs are what needs a nerf. So Royal Hogs are going to go into A tier. After the Bomb Tower nerf, they have proven to be pretty good. We're seeing some Royal Hog cycle decks. We're seeing Recruits Royal Hogs. They're very good. Recruits got a small nerf. I'm going to go ahead and put them in B. Most of the decks they're used in, the rest of the deck is broken. Not really necessarily the recruits themselves, but you got like the cage, right? The goblin cage, and Rohog's recruits. The electro spirit, 2 very strong cards, which make it good, I feel like. The skeleton barrel is going to go in C. I feel like it's not very as good anymore after the nerf it got. The skeleton dragons are going to go into B tier, just because they're quite good in lava. You see them in like clone decks sometimes too. Skarmy is actually, it's an average card. I'm gonna put it in B. I don't know. It's situational, but in lots of matchups it gets so much value, and for that reason I'm gonna put it in C. Skeletons are gonna go in A tier. I can't put them in S because I don't think they need a nerf. And you know what? Actually, I am going to put them in S just because of the value they get. I don't think they need a nerf. Just to clarify, I think the cards in S, they could get a nerf and they'd still be okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean they all need a nerf. Like, I'm not saying the miner needs a nerf. I just think the aspect of the skeletons and the miner are very, very strong. They're just very strong cards in my opinion. And that's why I have them there. This is kind of a longer video, so we'll see. Guards are actually kind of like the why would you even use them? Kind of like the goblins. I'm putting them in D. Snowball is, I'm gonna put it in B. The snowball. I think it's like average, but it's not above. The ice spirit is going below. The electro spirit and the heal spirit kind of keeping it from being amazing. The log is actually going to go all the way up in A tier. It's gotten a couple nerfs over its lifetime. If it didn't ever get those nerfs, it would certainly be an S. I don't think it's a broken card, but it is certainly very, very good. And kind of like the skeletons and the miner, it's just a very, very good card, but I'm not going to put it in S because there's a lot, because I think the fireball is a little better as a spell than it right now. 3M aren't in D tier anymore, but they are going to be in C. I still think they're below average even after the buff they got. Tombstone, going to be in C because, I don't know, it's one of the weaker buildings. Better than Cannon though, better than Furnace and Elixir Collector, but it's still a weaker building, so it's staying in C. Tornado is going into, to tell you guys the truth, the Tornado is actually going to go ahead and go into an S tier. Because, especially like with Electro Giant being really good right now, and Golem, I think we're seeing a lot of Tornado, and a lot of pros and some people in general are saying the Tornado could use a rework or a nerf. I don't know if it needs something changed to it, but in this current meta, I do believe it's a very, very strong defensive card that a lot of people are using. Valkyrie, I actually think right now Valkyrie's B just after the Knight nerf. I think more people are using it. Wall breakers are going to go into A. They're no longer an S tier, but they're very, very good. I'm going to speed up a little bit because this video has been going on a while. I don't want to make it too long, but there's so many cards in the game, so we're going to do Wizard in C. Sparky is actually going to go in B, even though it got a nerf. I think it's, nah, it's below average. Yeah, I don't know. It's not one you see tons of success with. Zappies are going to go in A tier. Such a defensive card that gets so much value. I don't know what happened there with my screen. Anyway, let's go ahead and get the Zappies up here into A. Zap is going to be, it's kind of average right now. I feel like a lot of spells are better than it. Delivery is going to go in C. I think it's below average. We see so many spells more than it. Like Fireball is just way better than it right now. Giant is going to go in C. I think it's below average right now, especially like with how good Fisherman, E-Barbs are in all these buildings. I personally would love to see a Giant buff. Could be biased because you guys know I like to use Giant, but I miss Giant being in the meta. It's definitely weaker now than it used to be. Arrows are going to go into I actually think A tier. Arrows are very good in lava. There's a lot of lava right now. A lot of people are using them because of like archers, firecracker, and they're just pretty good right now overall. So that's going to be every single card. Kind of a longer video, so hopefully you guys, I don't know how many of you guys stuck around to the end, but those of you who did, thank you for sticking around. You know, using my critical boss to support me any Supercell game. Really do appreciate all the support. But yeah, longer video. I usually don't do videos this long, but it is a tier list, and I wanted to give my thoughts and explain thoroughly on why I put each card where I did. So let me know your guys' opinions. There might be a couple of them I would go back and change, like if I rushed for any of them, but I think overall I did a pretty good job. At least I think I did for ranking the cards where I did. Let me know what you guys would change in the comments. Let me know your guys' opinion on the meta, and let me know if you guys want me to do another one of these types of videos again in the next meta, so maybe in like 3 or 4 months from now. Anyways, that's gonna be it. Thanks again. Make sure to like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Forgot to say that. Thanks again. Until next time, guys.